Welcome back. We're up to Yerushalmi Demai, another Masechet. Now, of course, you know the order of Maestros, Truma, Maestros. I'm sure you know the order. After Truma Gedola comes the separation of Masechet, which is the tenth of what's left. Then you after Masechet, you have Masechet or Masechet, depending what year it is. The Sakana of Demai is related to. There's a Gemara which talks about Yochanan Cohen Gadol. He sent messengers throughout the land and found that some of the Amei Haaretz did not separate Maestros, right? Truma Gedola, they were all very careful. So he made a takana, when you're buying fruit from an Amei Haaretz, you should separate Maestros. Because Minotaur, there was no obligation, you could rely on the Rav. And Rav, most Amei Haaretz were taking Maestros, but there was a miut who weren't. So he made a takana that when you take their fruit, you should separate Maestros. Even if Amorit says that Maestros has already been taken, he's not believed. And that is the Takana of Demai. Sometimes the word Demai is also cases of Suffolk Tevel. Okay, where you've got a doubt whether produce has had times you find fruit in the way, and so you don't know if fruit has had Maestros or not. Sometimes you find a reference to Demai in that. So that's what we're going to talk about in this Masechta. There are exemptions. Sometimes you might buy fruit from Haaretz for the sake of sowing or for animal food or something like that. In some cases, you're potter from taking Maisa. There was no Gezerah in such a case. And even Demai, where you've not taken Maisa yet, is also Ba'achida Midrabanan, right? It's got a din like Tevel. You can't send it to others. So that's what we're going to see. It's only a rabbinical obligation. So most of our Haaretz, we said, did take Maisa. So we do find various leniencies as far as proper Tevel, as opposite to Tevel. So you find various leniencies from Masechet, which is coming out from Demai. You don't always have to redeem it by adding an extra fifth. Various dinim, which we'll see in due course. Okay, let's move on. Let's start the new Masechta. So here we go. Hakalin Shadamai. So now, Klal Yisrael were careful with Trumas and Maestros, but as time went on, some of the Haaretz were lenient. Right, and they were separating only Truma Gedola and not the other Trumas and Maestros. Therefore, the Yochanan, as we said, made a Yochanan that if you're buying fruit from Haaretz, you have to separate the Trumas and the Maestros, but Truma Gedola you don't have to do. Now this is called Demai, right? So let's see what we've got here. Hakalin Shadamai. Sometimes some say the word Demai is from the reference to Domai, like what is this? Domai, what is this? What's the situation here? Have the mice just been separated or not? That's how some learn where the word comes from. So what have we got? A kalin shadamai. So the following are species where the chachamim were lenient, and they said you don't have to take maisa when they have their demai status. Hashitin, which are hashitin. Some of these we don't really know what they all are. It's a type of wild fig. Rimin they call jujubes. Uzaradin are azaroles, which are types of hawthorn berries. Or benai shuach, which are also types of white figs, or banai shikma, which are sycamore figs, but novelas hatamara, and these sort of parched dates. That's how some learn. Gufnan is fennel, and nitzpa is caper. So these, there was no chiyuv to be meistering them in Demai. Usually these were hefka, you see. Because they were hefka, people didn't care about them, and there was no chiyuv meisters on them. Of Yehuda, and in Yehuda, that which are these foods are following, ha'oig, which is like a sumac, they call it, and chometz, like a vinegar which is made from water which has grape seeds in the water. The hakusba, and some translate that as coriander. So some of these plants, they were dry. They weren't chashuv, these things, right? They weren't important, and therefore they were like left for hefka and so on, and therefore there was no chiyuv Demai in such a case. Alright. Rabbi Yehuda said, Kol HaShitin B'Torais. All the various types of shitin are potter from Demai Chusm shall differ except for the ones that produce produce twice a year. Kol HaRimin B'Torid. Rimin we said were the jujubes, these other types of berries. They're all potter Chusm Rimei Shikmona, except for the Shikmona was a place. Some say nowadays it's called Tel Shikmona, which is near Haifa. V'chol B'nai Shikma B'Torais Chusmin Amusutafos. And all these sort of produce of this benai shikma, these sort of berries, are potter, except from the sutafos means the ones we sort of ripened on the tree, and they've not sort of split open yet. So he says here, when they grow, is everything okay?
Yeah.
when they grow a long time on the tree, after they've ripened, they sort of split open. And therefore they're called masutafos. So when he says they're potter, he means if they fall off the tree before they've split open, they're not choshuv and they're hefka. But if they're on the tree, they're not hefka because the owner waits for them to open up. Okay, that's how some want to learn. Some say the Rambam learns that masutafos is a special type of these berries, which grows split up. That's how the Rambam learns. So that's the question here. So Rabbi Yehuda holds the ones that he includes or exceptions are the ones which are important, right? And they don't necessarily come from Hefka, and it could be the Chachamim argue on that. They would say, no, these also come from Hefka. So there's different views as to what is the status of these things. Okay, on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said, Lefish Rova Minim Alalu. Why are we lenient? Because most of these species ain't by an element of Hefka. They're coming from Hefka, and Hefka is parted from Maestros. Therefore, Lefi Chachman Ois and Chachamim, that's how the Chachamim treated them as things where we can be lenient. Right? Islam, the Pasuk, how do we know that something which is Hefka is parted from Maestros? It says the Levi will come, he has no Chelek Benachla with you, he gets Maser because he has no Chelek Benachla, whereas these fruits where he has a Chelek like you, because it's Hefka where everyone can get it, there's no obligation of Maser in such a case. Alright? The Rambam seems to learn that these things are found in the midbar, in the deserts and the mountains, and that's why they're Hefka. But we're going to see later on, if you know that they grew in gardens where there's owner, they're still considered Hefka, because people don't really guard them, they will make it Hefka. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, he said, Laishon, and when do we say we are lenient with these species? Ela Demai, when they are Demai, they've been bought from Amorites, we don't know if they've been Maised or not. Avo Vadai, if they're definite Tebel, and no Maasers have been taken, like you buy it from someone who definitely doesn't take Maaser, Chayovin, then you have to separate Maasers. So he's saying on this species that we've mentioned, the leniency is with Demai ones. But if it's Vadai, you have to take. Rav Yochanan, he said, no, Lo Shania, there's no difference between Demai, between Vadai, between both of them are potter. Because they're Hefka. And because it's Hefka, it's not important, there's no Chiyuv Maasers. Even if you know nothing's happened, it doesn't matter. But Kasha, what? Bein Demai, Bein Vadai. Whether when you get it. No, whether it's Tevel Vadai, it means either it's Demai, you don't know if Maasers have been taken, or it's not, or basically it's Tevel. Yeah. Or Bein Vadai, but they call it Vadai. But Turin, it's part of a Maasers. Because they're coming from Hefka, there's no Chiyuv Maasers at all. But Kasha Rav Yochanan. We ask on the view of Rav Yochanan, Lo Shana, when we say Ela Demai, we mentioned Paris of Demai is Patur. We said Hakalin Shema Demai. Oh, so the diuk is any other fruit which is proper Tevel, Vadai Chayavin. It sounds like it's only because it's Demai you have the exemption, not because of definite. If it was Vadai, it seems you would be Chaim, not like Yochanan. Oh, Ravla, Levishacho, Mokom, and Mokom, Loichav in every place in our Mishnah, in our Masechet, Loichav Shevela Demai. We're talking about Demai here. That's why I use a lotion of Demai throughout the Masechet. But here in our Mishnah, we're not learning only on Demai. Elavada, Tevel Vada would have the same din. So you want to say, you're right, in this case it would apply to everything. I mean, why is it brought here then? It's not really on Paris brought from ours, it's a general din that these things are Hefka. Right? Put it in Trumas. Why put it here? Right? Put it in Trumas, put it in Maestros. It's Lemaisa, you can't find the din unless you buy it from Amoretz. If you buy from a chaver who's careful, it doesn't matter if most of them are hefka or not, because it's mutar b'achila like anything you buy from a chaver. If you buy it yourself, you cut it yourself, then you know if it's hefka or not, right? So there's nothing to discuss. We're talking about where you buy the fruit from Amoretz, and that's why it belongs in Masechet Demai. You see, we're talking about fruit which is bought from Amoretz. Okay, so hachala zina nalavada. Masnisa, the following Mishnah, which is later on, Messiah Rav Yochanan, support Rav Yochanan, Migziv Lahalan, from Gziv, which is in the north, Potter ben Admai. Then there's no Kedushas Eretz Yisrael there when they went from Bavel, and therefore it's Potter from Demai. Shania he. Now, is there a difference, Migziv Lahalan, ben Demai le ben Vadai? There's no difference between fruit which is Demai to fruit which is Vadai Tevel. There's no difference. There's no Chiyuv Maestros in that place. And yet the Mishnah says it's din with Demai. And it's mentioned in Maseches Demai. So here is when our Mishnah, although the Mishnah mentioned Demai, nevertheless, Lo Shania Bein Demai Bein Vadai. There's no difference between the two. Right, we only mentioned Demai because it's in Masechet Demai, but there's no difference at all. Masnisa Pliga, the following brisa argues on the view of Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish was the one who said only Demai has the exemption, right, but not Vadai. So Masnisa Pliga Rish Lakish, we learned in the brisa with the minim mentioned in the Mishnah. Hayunish Morin. Now, if they weren't hefker, they were guarded. Chayovin, they're chay maestros. Now, but ikra loven a hefker ibain. Now, most of the fruit of these types come from hefker. So, how could it be that we know that these fruits are guarded? I mean, you have to say, how do we know it was guarded? You must have seen the owner pick them from a tree which was guarded. So you saw he didn't take maestros, and therefore it comes out it's proper tevel. And yet the brisa only said, because we know they're guarded. What do we see from here? Even tevel vadai, then even tevel vadai, they're only chayiv if you know they were guarded, but otherwise they're potel. And this is like the view of Rabbi Yochanan. But that's what we see over here. It's only if it's tevel vadai. So the Gemara answers, pasala. Yeah, you okay? You got it there? You got it there? Pasala Harav. You got the camera there? Harav. So you up to the way we are, yeah? So Pasal Harav. To explain the brisa, we're looking at most people who rear these things, Meshamrim, they guard them. But we're not saying we've seen that they were picked from a tree which is guarded, but they're found in a place where most people of this type are guarded. Most of this fruit in this place are guarded. So we assume that these were also guarded and they're chai b'maisa, even though we don't exactly know where they were picked. Okay? So we're talking about a place where most of them are guarded here. Alright. Esachami, come and see. So where would there be an argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish? Rav Meshamrin, if most people guard them, then Dibra Kol Chayavim, then everyone will say Yochai Maestros. Bein Demai, Bein Vadai, whether it's Demai or Tevel Vadai, Yochai. In Rav Meshamrin, if most people don't guard it, they leave it Hefka, Dibra Kol Paturin, everyone holds your potel. Bein Demai, Bein Vadai, everything is potel. So the Machlokes said, you're going to tell me Mechsal Mechsal. Now they want to learn half and half means we don't, not that half people guard and half people don't guard. He doesn't want to say that. They want to say, we don't know what the minig of Rov is. We don't know what most people do. Do they guard or not? Right? That's what they want to say. We don't know what the half is. So we can look at elsewhere and see what the minig is there. If we're going to learn half-half, we know half guard and half don't guard, then we shouldn't really be lenient just because of what happens in other places. It doesn't help me here. So therefore they want to say, Masa means we don't know what most people do in this place. Les Yachid, you can't explain that. The Taninan, we learn Masa Demai. We would be Machmir and you have to take Maisa. So the Gemara answers, the truth is we can say the argument is half-half and it's different from the Mishnah in Machshir, Amim Zira. We're not talking about Hakalim Shadmai, and we're not talking about those special species which are specially lenient. Ela Demai Atzmai. It's normal things which are important produce, right? So the Mishnah is not makel with half-half because you can't be lenient. But the Machlokes of Yochanan and Rish Lakish is talking about minim akalim, right? Basically where you can be lenient if it's half-half, right? That's what we're talking about. These more special things which are more often than not, they're hefka. And we can say the Machlokes of Yochanan and Rish Lakish is talking about a case of half by half. That's all very well. So we're talking about these minim akalim. We've got a doubt, do most people guard it or not? You've got Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Now, what about normal things? And you've got a suffix, normal produce. Do most people guard it or not? Tali we've learned. Nechas le'ir, if you go in a town, sharuba goyim, mainly goyim, and you buy fruit there, the suffix in Rov Misham, we don't know if most of the people guard this species, suffix in Rov Misham or not. Divra kol paturin, everyone holds your potter from maestros, bein demai, bein vadai. Even if they're suffix or definite, they're potter. Why? Most of the town are goyim, right? This fruit is probably from a guy. The malacha was complete through a guy. They're potter completely from Maisa. And even if they're a Jewish person, Paris, we've got a doubt, maybe it's Hefka. So according to Yochanan and Rish Lakish, it's potter. Nechnas le'esh ruba Yisrael, going to town mainly Jewish people, Safek Rov Meshamrin, Safek ein Rov Meshamrin. Do most people guard or do most people no guard? You don't know. Divra kol chayavim, you are liable, maestros. Bein demai, bein badei, for both of them. Most people are Jewish, so probably this is Peres Yisrael, which is Chiyuv Maisa. Even though you've got a suffix, maybe it's Hefka, everyone agrees you can't be lenient with that doubt. If you go in a town, suffix Rov Goyim, suffix Rov Yisrael, We don't know who's the majority in this town. Is it mainly Jewish people or not? You buy fruit. Safek, you don't know. Rav Shamrin, if most people guard this thing, Safek ain't Rav Shamrin. No, they don't. That's the argument. So according to Rav Yechon, it can be lenient on part of the payros because you have two speakers here. It might have come from a guy. Maybe it's Hefka. According to Rish Lakish, the Chachamim were machmeh. They weren't makel even if you have two doubts. Hashitin is part from Demai. Eile and Hashitin, what are they? Rav Shimon, Bereider Rav Abi Amar. Eilu, Shein Yotzim Tachas Alin. These figs that come from under the leaves. He says they're wild figs. They grow under the leaves, slightly different from normal figs. Habakiros. Now these are figs that ripen very early. Suyafos, the ones that are very delaying in their ripening. Hare'elu Patoros, they're potter from Maisa. Ve'elu Enabakiros, what are the ones that ripen early? They ripen before you put the guard in place to guard the fruit. So you've not even got the guard there yet, and they've ripened so early. They're considered hefka. Does everything depend on the guard? You point a guard. Didn't appoint a guard? Is that what everything depends on? Or Rav Yossi says there's not enough there. The reason why they're pottle, there's not enough quantity to require a guard to start dealing with it. What are the ones that ripen very late? The ones when the people who cut the figs already put away their knives. Is to leave them for the following year. And once they put away their knives, all the fruit that's remaining on the tree and not yet ripened is not choshev in the eyes of the owner, and they leave it as hefka. These early ones are chayv ma'aser because usually you do guard them, and you'll pick them together with other produce, and they are kept. Now we bring a brisa now, which limits the Mishnah about Shittin. The Shittin which were in Sipori, they are Chaim Maestros because they are normally guarded. Now we said they're potter from Demai. He's saying that it only depends where they grow. The one in Sipori are Choshuv. They're not Hefka. Right? Okay. Nistaifu Hata'edim. The owner's finished cutting the figs, and you've got some of these late ones on there. He guards his field for the grapes that have not yet been cut. But so were it not for this, he wouldn't bother guarding his field. He's only guarding the field not for these figs, for the grapes which are there. You see, he's guarding his field for other reasons. Or Anovim, the grapes are now finished cutting, and there's only very few old grapes now. Now Yerek, he's guarding his field because of other vegetables. So if the worker comes in with the produce, and while he's there, he eats from the figs or the grapes which are left, or Balabais Makpid Alav, the owner cares about it, Asuris Mishum Gezel, then it's Chai B'maisa, and you're not allowed to steal it. So if the owner still cares that the worker, whether he's eating from them or not, then obviously they're not hefki yet, and there's a problem, we can't take them. They went to eat in an orchard to eat the late ones. But the guard started screaming at them, don't eat. And he stopped eating. Rebbe said, no, you can eat, don't worry about him. The owner's given up, you don't have to worry. The shomer is screaming. How can you tell me, the owner made a hefka? You know, that's a good question. You're right, it should be forbidden. Okay, fine, it should be forbidden. But the following Mishnah argues on Rav Yochanan. It says, various types of grasses, hyssop and grasses, which are plants which grow wild, which are grown of their own accord in a courtyard. If they're guarded, they're chayav maestros. It says a courtyard. Begina, if they grow in a garden, are filling nishmarin potter. Even if they're guarded, they're potter from maisa. What do we see? If it's not important and it grows in a garden, it's hefka, right? Even though the garden is guarded. So in the story of Rebbe, these things grow in the field, like vegetables. We should question now, this fruit, we should treat it as hefka, even though it's guarded there. And that's the stira to Rabbi Yochanan, who said that if it's guarded, it's forbidden. No, we're saying no, it should be hefka. That's what we see from here. Even if it's guarded, it should be potter, it should be hefka. So my answer is Tamam. with that which grows, let's say in the garden which is guarded, if you want to take it, you can tell the owner, the whole world's in front of you. These things you find everywhere, right? Therefore, the owner doesn't care. People are the ones that grow of their own accord in the garden, and they're considered hefka, even though they're objecting. You can't start being objecting. You can't bottle that last way it's a koladam. But with the late figs, the owner or the guard can tell a stranger, you know what? These late ones, there's one basket here. Leave it with me. Don't take it, please. Right? It's not very common. And the amount of this fruit is hardly any. I'm keeping it for my worker to give him when he comes to work in my field. And that's what people do. Therefore, it's not hefka. You understand? There's only one basket there. Leave it. I'm not making a hefka. I'll leave it for my worker when he comes to get it. But novelist tomorrow, we spoke about these dates which are parched. Tani Rav Yehuda, he's learnt novelist and him tomorrow. Now, if they're sold with normal dates, maybe they're thrown in together, it should be chayavos. They are chayv maestros. Because the owner sells these parched ones with the other dates, you're showing that you want them, and you're not making a hefka. They're going together with the sale, right? So therefore, they're not hefka. Now what situation is he talking about? Is it where they're in shtei kupais, they're in two separate containers, zu b'sad zu, or maybe they're found in two boxes, zu al gabe zu, one on top of the other. Maybe if they're next to each other, they're not important, like being sold together. Are they considered? So basically, when you have two containers, is that called being sold together or not? Maybe it has to be one on top of the other. He says, the Gemara says, V'lo shani, there's no difference. He's whether it's one next to the other, one on top of the other. Wherever they are, they're considered separate. They're part of a maser. And what are we talking about? Where they're sold with the dates, but more rabbis, they're mixed together in the same box. That's where they're considered gathered together, right? In that situation, there is Yehuda Paskin that they are chayv and maestros. They're in the same mixture. Now, another question. Are we talking about k'shei sa'ir? Are we talking about these parched dates have already ripened, that they've sort of swelled up a bit? Or they're not yet sort of swelled up a bit? Rab Mana, he said, b'shei sa'ir anan kiyamin. We are talking about a case where they've swelled up, and that's where Yehuda is mechayev them when they're sold with the other dates. But if they swelled up, then even b'fnei atzmon, if they're sold on their own, you chayam they should chayv b'maisa. They've reached the stage of taking maisa. The Gemara says no. Less yachil. You can't tell me that the ones which are sold on their own should be chayv b'maisa. Why not? So the reason why all the ones in our Mishnah Apotel, they should rove aminim ma'elu hefka. Most of them come from hefka, right? That's what Chacham said they're potter from maestros. Now, novelos are mentioned in our Mishnah. And even if they've reached the stage of maestros, they're still potter if they're sold on their own, because you assume they come from hefka. Now, he said, we're talking about they're not swollen up. And still Rabbi Yossi is mechayed maestros, if they're mixed with the dates. But if they've not swollen up, and afilu b'moramis, even though they're mixed up, you patoris, they should be potter. They've not reached that stage of maestros. They should still be potter. So he says, no, less yachil. You can't tell me that the ones mixed will be potter because they didn't reach Eidos and maestros. The Tani related to the price of Shon Yossi Amav Shemaviv, Eshkol Shabika B'Garge Yechidi. You've got sort of one cluster where one sort of grape has ripened from the whole cluster. It's reached Eidos and maestros. Kulai Chibur maestros. The whole cluster is considered it's reached the stage of taking maisa because it's connected to that one grape. So here as well, if you mix the dates and the novelas together, they're considered one, and they're all considered as if they've reached the stage of maestros. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda obligates maestros, right? Because they're all mixed together. Rabbi Yehuda, he said, it was the era of Hila. Chad Amar Kadein, one said like Rav Mana, but Chad Amar Kadein, one said like Rav Chamina. Okay, so we brought two opinions of the Tanaim about novelos. The Tana of our Mishnah patted in every situation. And Rabbi Yehuda held, when they're sold with the other dates, they're chayav. So we're going to bring a third opinion. When said like it is, not like either of them. Ella. Those parched dates which have split open, chayavos, they are liable even if they are sold on their own. They've reached the sa'ir, they're fitting to be eaten, they're not hefka. They're shaloi tilu sa'ir, But the ones which didn't reach this stage of splitting open Paturos, they are potul, even if they're sold together with the dates. Okay, so he wants to say, did they reach this stage or not? That's what everything depends on. Hagufnan, we said Shumira, that's fennel. Ma'beim Yehuda beim Galil. Now, are we lenient with it everywhere? Or maybe only in Galil? So, Mimada Maslin le Masal beGalila. You know, there's a famous parable which they say in the north, as far as this fennel, as far as this Shumira. It says, Shumira, Shumra, Shema Kamara, it's bitter like, Shema Kamara, it's bitter like bile. Man Masalachim Tablaya, who compares to you with the spices? You're not really fitting to be with the spices. This was some phrase they used in Galil, not in Yehuda. Hada Amra, this tells me, in the Galil, this fennel wasn't really important. And therefore it's called Kalim Shabadamai. And therefore Potter. Therefore it's Potter from Maestros. It wasn't significant. But Yehuda and Chayav, in Yehuda you are liable. It was considered important in Yehuda. And then,
different kind of fennel? Because fennel isn't bitter.
They call it fennel. Wherever exactly what it is, I don't know how sure we are as to what it is. Alright. Yehuda Kuzbra is coriander. Some say it's coriander, some say Zukusbata. Ma'bein Yehuda be'Megalim. What's the difference? Are we lenient in both places or only in Yehuda? Mimada Masle Betal B'Doroma. They have a parable in the south, which is in Yehuda. Kuzba, Kuzbata. Man Maslechem Tablaya. Who can compare to you with the spices? That was only said in Yehuda, not Galil. Adara, but in Begalil, Chayev is Galil the Chayev Maestros. Yehuda Patura. Yehuda is Patur, and the same did with all the 3 minutes mentioned at the end of the Mishnah. They're not considered Kalim unless they're in Yehuda and not Galil. Because it depends, every place was different. The Hachaimetz and the vinegar in Yehuda, Tani Rulat, Amar of Yehuda, Bereshina in the beginning, when the base Mikdash was standing, Yehuda Potter and Maestros. The vinegar in Yehuda was Patur, now all wine was kept in a status of Tara, purity, from the Sachim, the libations and the Mizbeach, and because of the schus they brought to the Mizbeach, the wine did not go sour anywhere. They'll get vinegar, you'd have to use sort of grape juice or something, grape juice, peel juice, whatever, which is made by soaking the seeds of grapes in water. And the seeds were hefker, and therefore the vinegar coming from there was potter from Maestros. But Achshav now, without the base of Mikdash, Shahayayin Machmitz, the wine now, things do go bad, and the Chaybas in Yehuda comes from wine, and you do find vinegar. Chayav, the vinegar has an obligation in Maestros, because wine is made from it, and therefore the wine is Chayav in Maestros. So that vinegar also has an obligation. Now from Yehuda it comes out that Temed is potter from Maestros. So we're going to ask a contradiction from Yehuda to elsewhere. We have a contradiction. We've learned in Maestros, Hamed Tamed. That means you make a juice out of these pips, which have not taken Maisa. But Nasa Mind B'midah, you put in exactly enough water, a measured amount of water. And then you measure your juice, and you find exactly the same amount. Potter, your potter from Maestros, because it's water. Basically, it hasn't improved at all, it's just water. Rabbi Yehuda Machayev, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you have to separate Maestros. Here, in the price that we brought, he says Temed is potter from Maestros. And there he says if it's increased a bit, it's taken in flavour and it's higher than Maestros. So our Rabbi said, very shina, in the beginning, when the base Mikdash was standing, there was a tons of wine. They didn't need to make Temed to drink. And the pips and things weren't significant. They would make it hefka. You make a juice out of it, it's potter from Maestros. Therefore, the time of base Mikdash, Temed was potter from Maestros, like we understand the Brisa. The Achshon now we don't have a base Mikdash. We don't have so many grapes, and the pips are important, and you don't leave it hefka. Therefore, the Temed that's made is Chai b'Maestros. And that's what Yehuda said in Masechet Maestros, that Temed is Chai b'Maestros. Because the Mishnah is talking about Temed nowadays, without any base Mikdash. So nowadays things have changed a bit. Right? So nowadays, we don't have so many grapes, the pips are important, and it's not hefka, and therefore the Temed is Chai b'Maestros. Now, from the earlier Brisa, there's actually a steer to the view of Rish Lakish. Rav Huna, Amar, Rav Yirmiyah Bai, Less hadar pligon, and this Bryce seems to argue on Rish Lakish. The Bryce is telling you the vinegar in Yehuda, which is one of the minim hakalim, is potter from Maisrus, even though it's definitely teva. Rish Lakish said the ones that are kalim only potter when it's a demai, not when it's definite. It's only when it's demai we were lenient. That was Rish Lakish's view. And we're saying if it's definitely teva, it's still potter. So the very good question, we have no answer. I mean, he says here, Rish Lakish himself holds, when Rabbi Yehuda said vinegar is potter from Maisrus, is lav dafka, he meant vinegar is potter from demai. Not Maisrus, but potter from demai. Alright. The Yimu Kala Ribin. Now, we said, Rabbi Yehuda holds, all the Rimin, the Jujubes, are potter from Maisrus, apart from the Shikmona ones, where you are liable. The Yimu Kala Ribin are Ribin Shikmona. Now, all the other Jujubes from around the world should nullify the one in Shikmona. They should be Mavata, V'yu Paturin, and therefore they should be potter. Rabbi Yossi, Tifto talking about a case, B'makav Sharoid Meshamrin. Those people guard in those places in Shikmona. And since the Rimin are bought in Shikmona itself, they're bought in that town, these people grew them, and they're Chaim b'Maisrus, because most people grow it in that area. Okay? Rabbi Yossi but he asked, but why is a purchaser, why assume that what you bought in Shikmona grew in Shikmona? Surely the majority comes from outside Shikmona. So Yibu Kalarim in Shavailam, you've got all the others that grow all over the place that are potter, and there should be many more than Rimei Isa Amakan than the ones in Shikmona. The Yupaturin and the ones in Shikmona should be potter because they're only a small amount from all the Maestras. Very good question. The Gemara does give no answer.
People still eat the chuchuberry.
What? Yeah, I've never heard of it, the juju, but whatever. Okay. Some say we're not answering the question because we can say easily that everyone knew that you don't bring to Shikmona pears from elsewhere. Shikmona had a non-import policy, okay? And we knew they all came from that place. That's what some want to say. They knew that they didn't bring from elsewhere. Fine. Yeah. Demai ein lo chomesh. Right. Masa Sheni, which was separated from Demai, there's no chiyuv to add a fifth when you redeem it. The ein lo biur. They're not chayav biur maestros, right? It's not chayav this. You don't have to muvayir it. But someone who's lost a close relation before the funeral is allowed to eat Demai. Right, Masa Sheni, which is separated from Demai. It doesn't have all the normal Masa Sheni chumras. You don't add a fifth. There's no chiyuv to be muvayir it. An Einan can eat it. Even if it's gone into Yerushalmi, you can take it out and redeem it outside Yerushalmi. And you can throw a bit away on the street. You don't have to worry, a bit gets lost on the way. But you're allowed to give Maser Sheni of Demai to Ma'am Haaretz, and he will take it, or that money, to Yerushalmi. And you can eat other fruit with Kedushas Maser Sheni, Kenegdoi, corresponding to the fruit you gave to the Amoritz. So you're giving him this, and you eat something else with the din of Maser Sheni in that place. Okay? So there's all these colours here. At Umachalel Isa Kesef al Kesef, if you redeemed Maser Sheni of Demai on some silver, you're allowed to be Machalel it, to redeem it onto other silver. And copper, if you redeemed it copper, onto other copper. Usually you have to go different stages with Maser Sheni, right? But here, usually you have to be Maser Sheni. You shouldn't do it on the same type, silver on silver. It's not a derech of chilul. Chilul does when you want to remove kedusha to something else from another type, right? Many Rishonim hold actually even Maser Sheni on Vadai, the idea of Isur Kesef or Kesef is only when they're exactly the same. But one type of silver to another type of silver, if it's like one is more acceptable, that's okay. So Maser Sheni of Demai, you can do Kesef on Kesef even if they're exactly the same coins. That's the Chiddush over here. Okay? Nechoshes and Nechoshes. Kesef on Nechoshes, you can also be Machal the Kedusha Maser Sheni of Demai, which is on silver coins on Nechoshes, onto copper coins, and Nechoshes on Aperos, or copper coins onto fruit. Providing, V'yachza v'yiftes Aperos, and then you're also allowed to go and redeem that fruit which you put the money onto it, and you don't have to take that fruit to Yerushalayim. We allow you to redeem that onto other money and take that other money to Yerushalayim. That's the view of Rameir. Said, take that fruit, don't redeem it, take that fruit and eat it in Yerushalayim. Okay, now, we said that Demai hasn't got any biur, and the Vadai you're chayiv mitzvahs biur. Now Vadai, definite stuff, you have to be mevayir it, but Demai you don't have to. So he says, now, there's also a lenient, it sounds like Vadai, you have to do biur. He says, but Yechon Kohen Gadol removed the mitzvah vidui masa, which you find in Parashat Kisava. He removed that, and that means the biur as well was cancelled. That's the chelik of the vidui mitzvah. So it was Yechon Kohen Gadol. It sounds that he got rid of it. We seem to say, Vadai, you have to do biur. We say, no, Yechon Kohen Gadol got rid of it. So he says, Havira, Shalei is Vadu. He made a takana, you don't have to do the vidui. A levair, proper Vadai, you have to get rid of it. So levair, when the animals don't have it, you have to remove it from your domain, even after the takana. But that is only the Vadai, Masa Sheni from definite. Avol b'dmai, ein tzarich levair. When it comes to Demai, you don't have to remove it. Okay? V'nachal la'enein, be eaten to einin tani with blood. Masa Sheni of Demai, nachal ba'anina, it can be eaten in the state of aninas la'aleinu. Ve'ein nachal b'tumah. You can't eat it in a state of tumah here. Here we're comparing to Masa Sheni and Vadai to Demai. You can't eat it in a state of tumah. That you can't do. Ma bein anina, ma bein tumah. What's the difference? Amram Nachman. Tumah was very common. Mitzuyah. Anina, losing a relation, enamus, is not so common. Gazra dabashu matzoi. They made a decree on something which is common. V'lai gazra dabashu enamus, not on something which is not common. So Ainain, yes, he can eat. Tumah, no, he can't eat. Oh, Rabbi Yossi said, Afilu kesafik teva layaso aisei. Now, Demai, we didn't even treat it like a suffix of Tevel. The suffix Tevel, remember, you got other produce, you don't know if Meisid or not. Normal Tevel. Suffix, maybe you've got a doubt. Nitzkan Machmas Sheni, maybe Masa Sheni was taken. Suffix Lo Nitzkan, or maybe it wasn't taken. And so you separated Masa Sheni. You don't know. Did you have to? You didn't know. You're not sure. Shema Eino Asalainen. Now that Masa Sheni you separate out of doubt is forbidden to an Aine. It's a suffix min Torah. We have to be strict. But but here we're saying that Demai mutar la'ainain, and Aine is allowed to have it. So we learn from here, we're not machmir with Demai as if it was a normal suffix tevel from the Torah. Because the main din you can rely on the fact the Rav Ami'aretz take Maisa, but the Chachamim were machmir to what small miot who don't take Maisa. Okay, Tamon Tanina, we've learned about Matzia. A truma or trumas maser. Is there anywhere here? I think we're going to stop here. Yeah, stop here, Rabbi Sai. Okay.